Disclaimer: this show is not for the faint of heart or the easily offended. The views expressed here are that of the show hosts only, and not their wives, girlfriends, husbands, boyfriends, polygamous partners, employers, music artists, businesses, or anyone other than the Cognitive Dissolutions podcasters. The explicit tag is there for a good reason. Please proceed with caution.
Every one of us will have to decide whether or not we want to keep this great republic or whether we're willing to sacrifice it and surrender it to tyranny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Cognitive Dissolutions podcast, where we address the current issues of today with brash humor, skepticism, or aggression to invoke critical thinking in the masses. We take our tightly held beliefs, everyone's tightly held beliefs, mash them up with current events, politics, and religion, then throw them to the fires of skepticism. We magnify the so-called logic, then blow it all up. There is no green zone of safety for a lack of critical thinking. This is episode number 25. Today we have a special guest, Tracy. Your hosts today are Joel, John, and I'm Al, and we're your tormentors. Now, how's everybody doing today?
Still skeptical.
Doing well.
That was like 4 skepticals.
So for those of you who are listening who don't understand why that's funny, is I had to do the podcast intro all fucking over again. And as much as it irritated me last time, it irritates me even more now.
Because we had the revelation on the last podcast that he uses the word skeptical twice in the intro. And it's been driving him nuts, so now you got to do it 4 times.
That's funny.
You just gotta have faith, Al. You just gotta.
Oh, no, he dropped the F-bomb.
Oh, it's going to be one of those days. I need to go get my bottle of Jim Beam before we
are
start,
your tormentors.
Nice.
Tracy, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's been an interesting week for me, so. But other than that, doing very well.
How so? How has it been an interesting week? What's going on in your world?
Well, I grew up, I guess my background's different. I grew up in Aloha, so I feel like whenever these kind of situations like the news has been presenting lately goes on, I get a lot of people that either want to provoke or genuinely ask questions, and so it's been a lot of speaking and a lot of different things and trying to get different things together and speaking with my daughter and conversations with her friends' parents and everything. So this has been a long week of talking for me. So.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to take some time and do it with us. I mean, I know that I've wanted to have you on the podcast for a long time. We came close a couple of times, but I
know that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I know. I'm so stoked, and I'm glad that you're able to come on now and just give your perspective on everything that's going on. And I think that if we can take a moment, John, do you want to kind of give a little snapshot of what we're talking about here?
As long as it's not a snapshot by Progressive, I hate that damn thing.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, but all the tracking, the NSA, and all this stuff really kind of creeps me out a little bit. Anyway.
Yeah, go find your Pokemon, buddy.
Yeah, that too. So, last time, we were going to discuss how there are permits for demonstrators, for protesters, and how the permits are less to tell people that what they can and can't do, but more to give them guidelines of how to not be arrested while they're doing it. You know, what are the guidelines for civil disobedience. How do you protest and get your point across without crossing the line and doing property damage or endangering people's lives? And we didn't really get into that. Instead, we kind of got into a discussion about what was being protested.
Mm-hmm.
In the interest of time, I'll just say that for the most part, the permitting process for just about anything in this country was designed to keep people safe. Now, whether or not it's actually doing that is kind of up for debate, and that's kind of why we wanted to have this conversation in the first place, Joel. But
yeah, the irony of getting permission to redress grievances against a government that's constitutionally protected. Just saying.
Exactly.
But that's not important to Joel. Joel does not care about freedom.
Well, because it's
Joel
so clear. There's only one argument that makes any sense to that.
So, in particular, in your chat panel, you're going to find that I linked this last week a protest that happened in Olympia, Washington, just on the 7th, only 5 days ago, and the protesters appear to be mostly white. The police officers appear to be mostly white, but it is a BLM protest. It's a Black Lives Matter protest. And the protesters are not being particularly violent, though they are being kind of stupid, standing in the middle of the street, deliberately walking into police, kind of trying to make a point out of their existence. And the point that I would like to make about this particular protest, well, one of the reasons I chose it is it's local. Another reason I chose it is because both groups, both the police and the protesters, are predominantly of the same race, and nothing seriously violent does occur. Nobody gets shot, nobody gets beat up, the riot gear is there, the police do have paintball guns that apparently have some kind of mace in them, in the paintball pellets.
They're called pepperball guns, and there's a whole range of different pellets you can have for those. Anyway.
And, the whole thing is very... is, in my opinion, the way a protest should be, but with a little bit more intelligence. The question that I would ask you, Tracy, in particular, not you, Joel, is this what you envision when you envision a peaceful protest? Or when you, as a person of color, as a woman, as a person of color, as someone with children, mind you, do you envision what you see on TV? What is your preferred method of protest?
My preferred method would be a peaceful one, where there is no incidents, and that's how it should be. Do I understand why they get escalated the way they do? I do in that sense as well. I was just talking about this with my mother, and we were wanting to go down to a peaceful rally, and she was just concerned, like you're a single mom and you have a kid, don't put yourself in a situation where you can be endangered and things like that. And it's sad because there are a lot of people who do want to do peaceful protests but can't go down and do these things for other logical reasons. As much as I'd like to be a part of the movement, I have to be also faced with the fact that I'm a single mom and someone is relying on my care. I can't afford to get arrested. I can't afford to be tased. I can't afford to have violence ensue around me. So as much as I would love to go, I know that more often than not, a lot of the protests are not as peaceful as people even who may go are intending it to be.
Why do you think that is?
I think we're in an emotionally charged state right now. I was talking with a friend a couple of days ago who really wanted to have a conversation, and this was like fresh off of the shootings that were going on, and was really wanting to, and it was like, why am I not being included in all of these things? And the best way I could say is like, it's not just anger you're dealing with. You've got people that are grieving. People don't always act in their right mind when they're in that grieving process and everything that's going on. So it's a matter of the right timing for some of these things, and it sucks because you're in that whole position where you're wanting immediate action and to do something, but sometimes you've got to take the timing just to process what's going on as well.
Okay, last question, and then we'll get into the process of roasting each other. Why do you think the media focuses on those more contentious protests when they occur? I mean, if let's say even local channel somewhere here in Washington is going to say something about, you know, what happens in Maryland just because CNN is saying something about it, or do you think they do it for ratings? Do you think it's like NASCAR? People turn on the TV and watch these protests because they want to see somebody crash and burn on the wall?
Yeah, I think part of it is social, like, oh, what's that word? I just forgot it.
Rubbernecking?
It's sensationalism.
Oh. There's that too.
Right. Yeah, the part of it is sensationalism. You do kind of want to see that thing. A lot of it, I feel like there's also a lot of divisiveness that's used in these things. It's like when you are seeing these, I've noticed, like, you see these protests and things, you've got two very, like, different opinions that are being approached, and people are going head to head, wanting to butt heads, and it's I feel like sometimes it is created to, like, started just to create even more of a divide, and not bring attention to the issue that's going on. So it's like, I feel like they're focused on these. I've been to a lot of peaceful rallies, and none of them have made the news. You know, it's always the bigger ones that are, you know, that are shown in things, and I think that's used to incite fear in people and create a divisive tension between people. It makes a dialogue almost impossible to happen.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. But let me just, this kind of poses a question, but also somewhat of a statement, is clearly the idea behind a protest of any kind, it should be to affect meaningful change in some regard. And I guess the question I pose is, are we able to? Maybe we're not able to affect meaningful change regardless of what we do, just because of the power structure that we have. But I mean, is it the stuff that's making the news that has a better chance of leading to meaningful legislation or changing people's attitudes? I mean, wouldn't someone who wants things a certain way be perfectly content with a bunch of people standing around and not getting any media attention? I mean, I know it's a fine line. Obviously, we don't want crazy shit happening in this country, and we certainly don't want innocent people being killed or harassed or all the other things that can happen when things start going crazy. But how do we affect meaningful change if we aren't pushing that envelope?
I would have to agree with you there, because that is the whole thing. You are getting media coverage. Whether you want to hear it or not, the Black Lives Movement is something that pretty much every household knows right now. And this isn't just now, but like the civil rights in the 60s, these weren't just things that were spurred of the moment. These are very calculated so that you can get the presence, so that you do see these things. These are all things that have always been calculated. It's not just a bunch of angry people. There are people going to work and making their strategies. So it gives you the media coverage. Yeah, it's a household name, whether you agree with it or not, but it is putting that name out there over and over and over again. And it's every time it's mentioned, maybe hopefully for some people it's getting less and less scary.
Do you think that BLM is missing not only the movement, but
I just lied.
Sorry, let me say that again. Do you think that what could be missing from the BLM movement right now, it's not necessarily the ideas, but the person out in front, the Dr. King and everybody in the civil rights movement. I mean, there were some faces and names that everybody in this country knew.
Right.
And maybe this is just me being in a bubble, because I don't watch news at all. And so maybe there are people out there that are more household names than I would know, but it doesn't seem that way. And of course, when I talk about Dr. King, I do so in a reverent way because of history is made him to be even bigger than he was, rightfully so.
Right.
And so I wonder if that's what there's no. It doesn't seem like there's a strong leadership. Certainly not coming from Obama or any of our leadership in Washington, and
Right.
I'm not hearing other names.
Right.
As like I could just say off the top of my head. I wonder how much that plays into that things do seem somewhat more disorganized than they did back in the 60s. Am I boring somebody?
It had to have been Al. That wasn't me.
That was me, and it's not out of boredom. What most people don't know is the amount of work that goes into these podcasts after hours, or
I know.
in this particular time,
You
all
worked your ass
fucking
off.
night last night. So
Oh, man.
my yawn was from exhaustion from editing 2 episodes back to back.
Oh, that's
I appreciate you, brother.
Definitely.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I've wondered that myself as well. Do we need a name?
Can you be that name?
I would love to be that name. My kid thinks I should run for dictator. So she's like, you have just short enough attention span that once you fix everything, you won't want to be dictator anymore. Like, I kind of like that idea.
That's great.
I'm like, no, it'd be nice. And I guess that's what it is you do have, we're in this situation. It's like so often, I'm like, I'm just now, the only reason I'm even free now is that I just got laid off. And, I've been so busy. I work 2 jobs, and you've got a lot of families that are working really hard to support their families that would love to be a part of this movement. And maybe it is that the name and face that we're needing is yet to be found, but it doesn't mean that the movement shouldn't keep trying to go.
Tracy, what does the Black Lives Matter movement mean to you? How does it impact you?
What it means to me personally is just getting out there. Like I run in primarily white circles. I grew up in a primarily white neighborhood. There's times I feel very alone and very misunderstood, and I hear comments from even some of my own friends that are not necessarily like attacking in any way, but it's just things I hear, and it is very much like, but my life should matter too. And it's explaining things to people in a way like, okay, so me personally, if this was to happen to me personally, kind of thing. And I'm like, it's that everywhere. Like I hear people like, oh, it's black men. I'm like, I have a dad and a brother. Yeah. I'm not supposed to be scared for them. My nephew, any of them, or my daughter, or any of this. It's just wanting to let people know that we have lives here too, and we're all fighting for the same thing. I shouldn't have to wake up and look at the news and immediately burst in tears and not even be able to go to work because this is happening again, and you just feel unheard again and again and again and again. And I don't want to give way to anger. I don't want to give way to radicalization and unrest. For me, and I've said it a long time, long before these started happening on a regular basis, it seems like paradigm shifts are rarely nonviolent. If you look at history, and I'm just really wanting this one, if we could shift this, if it's going to shift, I'm really hoping that we're evolved enough to learn from our history and like of mankind period, and take a different route this time. And I'm hoping that this movement can show that no, we're all struggling, and we're all wanting to live, and we're all wanting the same things, and no, we're not trying to take from you, we're just trying to better ourselves too,
So do you see a correlation between the Black Lives Movement and, say, the LGBTQ community?
I
Or
do.
do you see it as different?
No, I don't. I've seen that as well. And then I do correlate, and I advocate for the LGBTQ community as well. I've got a daughter that just come out recently, and I'm so happy with the fact that it was a nonchalant thing for her, and that I've been in a community that can cradle her and that I can already be a part of and rally for there, and that she's seen that she knows that there's people out there fighting for her, even if they're not the same. I think that's really important, that these different people fighting for their rights, we're all fighting for similar rights. We should be showing each other support, because in the end, we all are human beings. And your rights are no more important than my rights. My rights are no more important than yours, but we need to work together to get them. Some of us don't have the same rights as other people.
So why do you see it that we don't have the same rights? What are some experiences that you have that focus your view as to say, I don't have the same rights as, Al on the podcast does?
Just several life experiences. I can go all the way back to, like, one of the first memories I have as a young child is wanting to play Justice League with my friends, and I just got the new Wonder Woman. I had the lasso and everything, so I was like, I'm Wonder Woman because I've got all the stuff. And that turning into a huge affair because the kids started with, you can't be Wonder Woman, you're black. And yeah, you're kids. Like, this was like 4 or 5. So, it's trivial, now. But then it was like, and then going to tell their parents, because they did end up taking, like, one of the cords that holds your screen in the window. And they whipped my back with it. And when I went to tell their parents, the parents told me I should have kept my black ass on my own side of the apartment.
Wow.
And this is like 4 or 5, to then which my parents, my mom is like the ultimate mama bear. Like, it turned into something pretty big after that. But they're barely there, but I've still got those scars from 4 and 5 on my back. And that's just the beginning experience. Like, that's just the first of many. I had people in middle school that would throw change at me, telling me they were contributing to the United Negro College Fund, even though I was getting the highest grades in the same accelerated classes as them.
Wow.
And it goes from there. My dad was pulled over every day for 3 years because we were the first black family in our neighborhood. And it took a meeting with the police chief to get that to stop happening. I think 10th grade in high school, like, skinheads came to our school and they were in uniform, the swastikas and everything. And I remember being in the office because they were just leaving harassing notes and following me home from school and my friends. And the teachers right then and there, like, well, we can't recognize these kids, so there's nothing we can do, as one's walking right by with the swastika painted right on the back of his jacket. And it's like, what do you mean there's nothing that you can do? It's right there. Like, what do you mean you can't recognize them? Everyone in the school could tell you exactly who they are, but nothing being done. And I ended up switching schools because of it. Because I think the last one was, I think it ended up being a noose being left in my locker and them not doing anything about it. And my mom pulled me from school and I switched to an arts high school for 2 years because she was like, that's where she drew the line. Like, I get wanting to fight, but not when it comes to putting your life on the line. And it's continued all the way through adulthood. There's so many different instances. That's just a book in itself, and it's hard to sit there, and you don't want to sit there and focus on all of these. These are things I don't try to dwell on. I've got a day-to-day life and good supportive friends and understanding progressive people around me. So I'm very lucky in that, but I can definitely say I feel like I've had a lot of instances that have shown me, or at least communicated to me, that my rights are not the same or as important as others.
Do you, just for clarification, you said that you grew up where? I mean, did this happen in the deep south?
Aloha, Oregon.
In Oregon, okay, yeah, well,
yeah.
Just for some reference, that's where my band rehearses currently. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So, like, right even it's weird because my 20-year high school reunion's coming up, and they've done this big post, and everyone's like, "You have to come. You were the only one." Like, I was the only black kid in my senior class.
Well, I mean, it
Wow.
says something that they want you to come, whether it's just for that or not. I mean, they obviously value you for
Yeah,
who you
and
are.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. Definitely, it'll be fun. I missed the last one, I guess, but it's yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's weird. I'm a hard worker. I'm a smart kid. I got a full ride to 2 different universities with a 10-year like lax in between them, and there's still certain things I can't do, even though I'm working hard, if not harder, than some of the people I know to get some of the same things. The job I was just at, like, I've got 20 years of experiences working in a doctor's office. I've done just about everything you can do, yet I was the lowest paid person in the office, and things like that, and issues I had with my boss where we had to get a mediator at one point, even there. There's little things that happen almost every day that could tell me. So it's a hard one to ask. If I can, there's so many instances, it's like I feel like if I just keep listing, at some point I'm just going to sound angry and bitter. And
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing that
really, it's just a part of life.
oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just a part of life for me. Like, there's so many instances it's just become a part of life. It's part of something that I have to deal with.
Yeah. I'm just curious about this. There's only so many ways in which I can relate to it, but do you ever? I mean, I assume that this happens on some level. Do you ever have to get to those moments where you have to sort of decide what this is? Like, if you have something happening, and you have to kind of like ask yourself, what's the motivation behind this thing, that some behavior that someone's doing, or something like that, or
So many
is that
times.
something you become more attuned to? I don't even want to ask the question.
It's not even a tune. It's really weird because there's been a couple of instances where it's like, that's the last thing I ever want to pull, because I know what happens as soon as you cry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's always the last thing I want to say. Like an instant with my dog, I was getting my daughter a dog. Like, we went and I paid the deposit, all of this stuff, went to pick out the puppy, like spent time with her, like showed her like I'd been training 4-H, all of this stuff. I know how to handle these dogs. And then she called me like the day before I was supposed to come pick up the puppy. And she was like, well, I just don't think with you being raised in the inner cities that you know how to take care of this dog. So I'm going to return. Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't grow up in the inner cities. Like, I'm a suburbanite. Like, what is she talking about? And I was so confused at that it was one of my white friends. It's like, Tracy, play the card. Like, and I'm like, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do that for you. That's messed up. Like, play the card. And it's so, it's something that I really try not to. I'd rather it be any other thing because of the emotions that it comes up. And then it hurts. It hurts every time. So it's like, I'd rather it just be, oh, she thought I was a bitch, or anything else other than that. And so it's hard because, and I've talked about that with other people of color friends, where we don't like playing the card, but when it becomes so blatant and obvious and you've tried every other thing, like, what else is there to do, and stuff. So, I know the stipulations that come with playing that card. I know the defenses that are going to jump up. I know what I'm going to be told.
So just in case there's a listener out there that doesn't understand what the card is, it's a reference to the quote-unquote race card, calling somebody out for being a racist asshole.
Yeah.
So to kind of take this in a slightly different direction, somewhere where we were trying to go last week but didn't quite get. Tracy,
sorry.
That's all good. Not going to let you live that down, Joel.
I know.
So Tracy, do you see, from your perspective and based on what you've just described your history as, do you perceive a real similarity between what's going on with the BLM movement and what happened back in the '60s. Let's look at people like Jackson and Farrakhan today, and compare them, if you can, in your mind. Real briefly compare them to people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. I was trying to think of a third or even a fourth one back in the '60s that would be.
I have a guy's face in my mind as clear as day, and I can't think of his name.
Well, there were a lot of them. I mean, there was Benson, there was Travis, there were a bunch of them. But
like Medgar Evers was a big one.
Medgar Evers would probably be big enough as well to try and talk. I mean, people when they turn the news on today, if you were to ask a white person just on the street, name a Black Lives Matter leader, I'm willing to bet that they might say Jackson, but they would probably say Farrakhan. I doubt they would know any of the other names. If you asked a white person on the street, name somebody from back in the '60s who was a civil rights leader, most of them are going to know Martin Luther King Jr. A few might know Malcolm X. Most maybe actually might know Malcolm X, but very few are going to know Medgar Evers. So that's kind of the comparison that I'm talking about. Not just the fame category, but the rhetoric category as well. The ability to speak, the ability to carry a message, and what that message was.
Right. It's hard. Because I don't have names that I can list off of the top of my head. I've read about different leaders and things like that. I would hope. I totally just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
It happens all the time. Don't even sweat it.
Okay.
So you were talking about kind of being unable to name any people right now, and
I actually meant to look that up. It was one of the things, because I'm not sure if that's a thing that's done on purpose or not. I don't know if this is meant to be like a nameless movement. It could very well be the plan to be exactly that, and the choice to have no leader. I'm not sure. I am not saying that. It's something that I had meant to look up, and haven't had the chance to look that up and actually no, because I mean that would change things if that's the purpose, is to not have a leading face. I
would question that tactic if that was the case. I mean, clearly we made an incredible amount of headway, with Dr. King.
It's an effective tactic. I mean, Anonymous is using the same construct. The construct. Yeah. When you have a leader, like the good Dr. King, if that person doesn't meet par, or there's anything in their background, they can be taken down and dismantled, and it taints the whole concept of a movement.
Interesting.
Fortunately, Dr. King was damn near untouchable. I mean, yeah, he was arrested a few times, but it was never for anything that was legitimate that could be held up in history and be like, oh yeah, this is a burning characteristic.
He was chosen for that exact reason. People, I was just getting into that. Like, a lot of people throw Martin Luther King in, and I've started to realize a lot of people don't have anything past like our elementary school version of him. It was a very calculated things that were going on back there. There were meetings before him, why he was chosen. There's actually the man that headed the church before him had actually started the whole, was like under that and pushing that, and had started more bus boycotts and things like that, and they had him come in and fill in those shoes for a specific reason, just like they chose Rosa Parks for a specific reason. Like, those were all calculated moves. These weren't just things that were like going to be thrown together.
Yeah, definitely.
They were all chosen for reasons, and a lot of people don't seem to remember that or know that.
And you can't do that today, not with Jackson or Farrakhan.
No, and that's the thing. It's what was it? I'm pretty sure I caught it they do have one of the leaders was just arrested. Like these are people speaking and with the movement, but they're not the founders.
Yeah.
A lot of the founders are people that we don't know, and they're nameless. And I did hear this morning that one of the leaders was arrested, but I don't have that much either. And it's a face that I've seen. I just don't know his name. But
I'm on it.
Okay.
So on a related topic, while Joel is occupied doing something else, because this where I'm about to go is someplace that Joel doesn't like to go. On the topic of being touchable or untouchable, fair warning, I'm about to be a little bit of an asshole, but somebody's got to play devil's advocate here.
Right.
Do you sense in the... Oh, that was weird.
I'm getting a call. Damn it! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm leaving that shit in.
Nice.
That's just too much work.
In the category of being touchable or untouchable, the BLM movement as a whole has a bit of a stain, and I'm going to call it a stain not because black people are doing this, but because this is a part of our culture. There is an element in our culture that seems to be advocating violence, advocating crime, and advocating quite honestly, killing police officers. There are songs out there about cop killers. There are movies that glorify people who kill police officers and make them either a hero or an anti-hero. Actually, going the distance and actually making heroes out of these people is kind of disturbing in my mind. And unfortunately, and I'm saying unfortunately because this is in fact the case, unfortunately this is tied to black people. It's in rap music, it's in movies that feature black culture, and a lot of people seem to call it black culture. Tracy, how do you feel about that? And do you feel that part of our American culture undermines or exemplifies the movement?
So there's two things that I guess two different routes or two different things I could say about it. I guess the first one being it's not just black culture that disrespects cops. It's in all kinds of movies. It's in all kinds of things. It's Breaking Bad. All of these things, like when we're glorifying the villains and all of these kind of things. So it's not just that. It gets attributed to, and that is some of the arguments that I hear. But I'm constantly having to tell people it's not just that. Like, we can't pick and choose. It's just a culture that we have. Like, it's a culture where most people don't respect the police. It's not just black people. I was just talking about that a couple of days with someone. White people can be very disrespectful of the police as well. It's just, oops, now that's me. But it's something that is definitely in our culture. And I definitely also see that it is starting to permeate. And it is something that is also in the black culture too. The problem with it is, and this is where it gets hard, is because you sit here and the best way I've been able to explain it to someone is let's take this if this was an abuse victim and someone has just been beating them down like every day and every day and every day and every day. How long is it going to take before that person just snaps back? Am I condoning the violence? No, definitely not. But I can see the tensions are getting there. Like this, for me, like when I'm seeing all of this stuff, if we can't make a change that's a peaceful one, we're going to start seeing more and more of this. Dallas did not shock me in any way. It's very sad, but it didn't shock me in any way. I don't think it's the culture saying this. I think you've got a lot of angry, hurt, and hopeless. And when people get hopeless, other things take that place. Anger comes in very quickly, and discourse, and all of these things. You get people acting out. I think people are acting out. I think people don't know what to do. People are feeling hopeless, and I think that's a very dangerous position. I've told my own daughter, like, I'm very worried for your generation. I'm really in fear that we're leaving you a violent revolution, and that it's going to be you guys that has to deal with it. It's something that I've been seeing, and it's in several communities. It's not just the African American community. When you're seeing all of this, it stains it. It really does, and I get that. And people are quick to put that on there. But I'm very quick. Like, if you're going to sit there and step back, it's like, let's look at the psychology of people. Let's look how we do. If we took this in a different situation and it wasn't, Black Lives Matter. Again, like if it's an abusive situation or something like this is something that we expect to happen. Eventually, a person can only take so much before they snap back. And I'm fearing that that's what's starting to happen, and that it's going to continue to happen, and just get worse.
So just to clarify, when I see white trash, KKK, neo-Nazis acting out in much the same way that you're talking about, man, that echo is just nuts. Are you guys hearing that?
Yeah, I am
a little bit.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So when I see white trash, KKK, neo-Nazi folk acting out the same way that you're describing, I feel about it the same way. That these people are obviously reacting to an economic situation. And mind you, here's the part where I start to sound just a little bit like a Leninist. Just excuse that for a minute, because I'm really not. But these people are acting on an economic situation, but they're responding to it in a racially charged format. They're using racial rhetoric, using race language to describe what is ultimately an economic situation. Do you feel that there's any teeth to what I just said? Do you have any kind of agreement whatsoever that there is a correlation between BLM and, let's say, neo-Nazism, and that they're just responding to the same thing in different ways?
I don't think Black Lives Movement is a hate group necessarily. I don't think they're out to, like, I don't know. So that correlation there. I do know, and if you go into history, that the South was left very broken after the Civil War. The Reconstruction didn't go as planned, and it left a lot of people in poverty, and that was very much the start, and that's where the KKK started arising from, were people that were angry and had flourished before and were no longer flourishing, and it was easy to blame, former slaves and things like that. I don't look at Black Lives Matter as a hate group. I know so many people that are a part of the movement. It's not a matter of hating other people or saying that we're superior to other people. I think the fight is different in that way, but I could definitely agree to, economic structures, affecting both of them in that way where people are getting upset and acting out. I don't necessarily put them in the same group, though, if that makes sense.
I'm okay with that.
Makes sense to me.
I'm okay with that, yeah.
Yeah, let me just interject for our one Southern listener out there. She said Civil War. For you people, that's the War of Northern Aggression. Just for translation.
Right. Sorry.
The War of Southern Aggression or Northern Aggression. Now you've got me saying it wrong.
Yeah. I got corrected on that earlier today. It was pretty entertaining to me.
Oh, that's priceless right there.
Speaking of Reconstruction, I was really shocked at how bad my education was as a kid, being taught about Reconstruction the way I was. that echo is really fucking distracting.
I'm totally with you on that.
I've muted my mic 4 times. It's not happening on my end.
All right, I'm going to mute.
Okay.
No,
Nope.
still going on.
Should I mute?
Try muting real quick.
Okay, I'm gonna mute.
La 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 la.
Yeah, it's gone.
Okay.
Is it back now? Is it me?
I think maybe.
Well, when you muted, it went away, but now that you're back, it's not back. So
Yeah.
Okay.
glitch maybe.
Maybe I haven't played on my headset in a while.
It's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'll see what I can do to decrease it in editing. So I'll do what I can. No promises, though.
I think I don't think it's very loud. I think it's more of just the fact that it's distracting the conversation a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sort of like
There it
Joel
is.
talking. Got it.
Okay. So I was really shocked at how, you know, now that I'm, that's my wife. Hi. Now that I'm an adult and I've had a chance to educate myself a little better on you know, the war of northern aggression, and there you go. And how Reconstruction was supposed to go versus how it actually went, and how I was educated about it when I was in junior high and high school, are honestly night and day. You know, the notion that Andrew Johnson, being, you know, this racist, and you know, a lot of our liberal media paint him as a racist, but in reality, his impression of what the United States should have looked like and the fairness that he was trying to create are kind of omitted in our history in a certain way. You know, the White House staff, for example, based on some of the literature that I've read, was actually more diverse than Obama's administration. And the one who really changed it was Woodrow Wilson. We've had this conversation before, but does it disturb you in any way that America's history is sometimes painted in racial lines? You know, and do you think that that's unfair?
I think it's unfair if you're not going to give everybody all of the information. I find a lot of times that a lot of the dialogues I get into, people just don't have the information, and we're relying, to me, it's almost, you know, I am now starting to understand why my mom homeschooled me 2 hours every day after coming home from school.
Nice.
Like, you know, they just weren't giving all of the information. They brush over so much and go into, like, that's what I remember saying to, like, my high school teacher, like, I'm just learning the same stuff over and over again, but with just a little more detail. But could we learn about some other things, or do I have to come to class? And that was me, because I didn't want to go to class, because I'm like, we've already gone through this, and you're either not going into more detail about it, and you're just basically reiterating the same things we already know. Like, give us some more information. Like, there's got to be more to it than this. Let's go into the history of the economics. I was really lucky to have a mom that was like, no, get a lot of information, not just in this aspect of my life, but in so many different ways. She's like, you can't debate with people that don't understand what's going on. If they don't have the information, you have to give them the information before you can even have a proper debate. Like, people need to go do your homework.
And history is all about debate and controversy. And
definitely.
In you know, pardon the expression, but black and white is kind of an injustice. You know, looking back at the 1950s and 60s, you rarely, in American high schools, you don't hear the arguments of the white people, the racists, the people who are opposing the civil rights movement. You don't hear their arguments because now they're irrelevant. The civil rights movement happened. The civil rights movement kind of won in a certain way. So we don't know what their arguments were. We don't know the rhetoric that they used. We don't know the words that they used, because you have to look really hard to find that stuff. When you actually do that and you dig in there and you find some of those words, and then you look at what's going on in the news today and you hear what a lot of people are saying on both sides, honestly, on the BLM side and on the other sides, which again don't really hear a lot from the other side. I'm kind of wondering who is advocating, killing black people, because I don't hear anyone advocating killing black people, but I hear a lot of people talking about it happening. Where does again? I'm very distracted by that echo. I had a really good point to make.
Let's see if I can
way
mute
off
it.
topic here.
I'll try to mute it, and then let's see if that helps.
Okay, I apologize for that. I was getting really distracted by that echo.
See, and I can't hear I don't hear the echo at all, so if I need to mute it, let me know.
Try just turning down the volume on your phone.
Okay. Is that better?
John?
So far.
No.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah? Okay.
There we go. Good thing I figured that out at the end of the podcast.
Smart guy, look at you. So,
Awesome.
basically, there's the echo again.
I'm getting it again, too.
Oh,
Yeah, it came back. Do you have headphones in, or are you just holding the phone up to your head?
I have my headphones in. And so I'm on my computer because my phone wouldn't download for some reason, but I've got my headphones in that I normally.
Are your speakers on as well?
I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. Let's see.
We'll just take one
Can you hear
headphone
me?
out, and if you hear...
I can still hear
Right.
you. I can still hear you.
Okay, I couldn't hear you when I turned
Yeah.
off my speaker, so.
I still hear the echo.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
It's okay.
The direction that I was trying to go there, and this was the most contentious part of I think where I was going in this conversation, is I completely forgot where I was going.
I think you were
Well, I'm
talking
pissed.
about the
It was a rhetoric question. He was
something to do with history and people not knowing all the arguments.
So
Well, it almost doesn't matter, because, John, you're fucking wrong.
is there? Thanks, John.
fucking taking a play out of my book. I love it.
Yeah, I stole that right from Al.
I love it.
I'm so sorry. The fact that will be frozen in the annals of time with an echo is even better.
Right out of Yankee Stadium, right? Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
So long and short of it, Tracy, because I already know that Joel disagrees with me on this, because he's always telling me that I'm wrong. Tracy, do you sense that there is a force out there trying to categorically and systematically oppress other people just because of who those people are? Or do you think that there's something more of a general notion going on of haves versus have-nots, and the have-nots are trying to break in and become the haves, and it's just the natural course of economics? Or do you sense that there really is some kind of categorical systematic oppression going on?
Is it weird that I say a little bit of both?
No.
I think it's correct that you say that.
I think it's because I do think it's a little bit of both. I constantly remind people Dr. King wasn't shot until he started organizing marches on poverty and the struggle to make classism, class equality and things like that. He was allowed to march when it came to equal rights for black people and things. It was when he started moving beyond that and started going into that's when he was assassinated. The government settled with their family, as a part of that. I think that was early 2000, late 90s maybe. But the government settled with the King family and admitted to some kind of part of that conspiracy or whatever. I also feel we have a system, whether it's done on purpose or not, we have a system that has been built off of the backs of people. And those people are being oppressed and not being heard. Do I think it's some super group of people? I can't say all of that. I can say that there's a definite oppression that's going on. I can say that as long as we're bumping heads about this, that other things aren't going to get solved as quickly as they can. I do think that there's a economic inequality that needs to be addressed. But I'm also a person that says that 90% of our problems would go away if 80% of the population was gone. So, I do feel it's a little bit of both, though. There are some things that need to be undone. We were talking about the Reconstruction going wrong. It went wrong for both sides on that one. And we are still, and I go back to the abuse thing, that cycle of abuse kind of thing, because we can recognize cycles of abuse when it comes to individuals and generations in a family. But this is a societal family, and you've got someone that's been years of abuse, and yeah, there's still things that generations later we're still dealing with, down to colorism, to a few different things that are going on there. And I do think there needs to be some changes to level the playing field there so that we can all come together and then start dealing with the economic situation that we're having. Because it's not just poor white people, and it's not just poor black people or poor Hispanic people. There's definitely a have and have not situation. But there's definitely oppression as well. And I'm hoping that one day that these can all converge, and the system that's in place is not working. It's broken. It's broken for so many different reasons. Racial, economic, social, it's not working. Something political has to be done. Yeah, political, none of it's working. So at what point are we going to be smart enough to say things need to be reassessed? You don't just run something where, are we really just going to, let's run it to the ground? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, that kind of thinking is where you get people who want to revolve. And that's what I'm saying, is I'm hoping we can do this all in a peaceful way, because a lot of things need to change. And if we can't change any of it, we're headed towards a violent revolution. That's all I can see it.
I'd like to read something to you for a minute.
I want to get in here after that.
And I quote, "This American government, what is it but a tradition, though a recent one, endeavoring to transmit itself unimpaired to posterity, but each instant losing some of its integrity. It has not the vitality and force of a single man, for a single man can bend it to his will." End quote. That might or might not sound like something that may have come out of a modern movement, but I'd just like to tell you that was written in 1849 by one Henry David Thoreau, a bearded white man in Massachusetts. I think that in a big way, what's going on today has been going on since the dawn of man. And in the biggest way, what we're looking at is the human propensity to want to have a grip, to want to be on top, to feel as if that individual is the universe, is the world, that the id wants to be in charge. Do you agree in any way, shape, or form that perhaps all of these troubles that we're having can be, actually can't be resolved, that these things are part of human nature?
And this is where I guess my idealist and my realist kind of butt heads there. I guess that's what, I'm hoping that we can learn. If we're as evolved as we say and think that we are, at this point we should be smart enough to look at history's mistakes and learn from it. I don't know if that's going to happen. More and more every day I feel like it's not. I don't want to give up hope on mankind, in any way. I think that we're smart enough to get through this if we can figure out a way to work together. But yeah, we are animals, you know,
Well,
and we have certain instincts that kick in. And can I say that's one of those instincts? I don't know, but we've done this, like you said, since the dawn of time. Conquer and expand, and conquer and expand.
Go for it, Joel.
yeah. Well, I mean, you bring up an excellent point, and I think that the only way to, I want to figure out how to frame this up exactly. So, in order to do something from a state of reason, you have to have a plan. And I think that everybody knows that when you go into any kind of a war, a battle, whatever, if you don't have clear terms of victory, or I think there's a military term for that, where you lay out exactly what your objective is, and once you meet that objective, then the mission is over, the war is over, whatever it is, you know.
Right.
And then it's possible for the president to stand on the deck of a carrier and say mission accomplished.
Oh yeah, because
Your shit is actually done. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember another guy saying we got him, but anyways, so yeah, I mean, I think that what we have here too is a situation where, do we actually know what we want this to look like? Like, and with having our ideological selves and our practical selves butting heads, what can we truly settle on? Because right now it's like we have oppression, you know, or whatever perspective you have. It's more of a, this is how I am now, and not what do we want to get to. Those are so amorphous and ambiguous, those goals. I don't know what, even me, like, I don't know what it's supposed to look like, and that seems crazy to me when I say this out loud, that I don't know what the end goal is. And of course it's always a moving target at some point, but yet when the target's not even a target, it's some ambiguous area in which we might be kind of trying to get to at some point in time. I think that's where the problem lies, is we don't have good leadership. We don't have clear goals of what victory would look like.
We have a clear goal, and that is to ensure that there is no Clinton-Trump 2016.
Oh my God. Please.
And that's how you see a very valid point, I think, just completely get taken off the rails.
Hey, Al, you know,
Thanks, Al.
In your defense, Al, that, you know, this is the season where we realize that, oh, wait a minute, there are more than two parties. So this thing ain't over. You know,
Right?
So,
Yeah. And Al, quit shitting on my 50-yard line, man.
Hey, I'm going to do it in your company area all day long, buddy.
Do you remember that story, Al?
I do. I'm the one that told it.
I know. I just want to make sure, because I'm going to like 2 or 3 podcasts in to get to that reference.
So Tracy, from your perspective, from your background, from who you are, what do you perceive to be the goals of, let's say, your personal BLM movement? You know, if you can say that you have such a thing, what would you say that your goals as far as society are?
And before you answer that, let's do this in a way that we can start tying this all together. We're getting
Right.
up on the bumper here. So
Gotcha. For me, my personal goals, I would love for my daughter to not have that sense of panic if she's pulled over. I would love for her to have the same equal opportunities as all of her friends and be paid the same amount for the same amount of work that she does. I want all of us to be able to go through life without carrying that extra burden of, oh yeah, in some way, shape, or form, the color of my skin is going to affect me today. And I know those are all generalized and drawn out, I want to be able to own property. I want her to be able to build wealth and not just rich. I want her to be able to leave things to her family the way others have been able to leave things to their family and let it go on and on. I want her to have the same access to the knowledge and everything that other people do. I want everyone to have the same access to knowledge that everybody else has, to make these opportunities more available across the board for everyone. And I don't know. I don't know if we need to move, if maybe it's moving towards a more anonymous society that would make something like that work. I don't know how it's going to work.
Nice shameless plug there for Anonymous.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Thank you.
But, but really, if we were in a place where, as much as I sit there and I'm telling my kid I hate her being online and stuff so much, but if certain things were able to be done in an anonymous way like that, where it's like you can't use my racial identity or my sexual orientation or any of that against me, you just have to judge me based off of me, and what you're gathering from me without looking at me. I don't know if that's something that would work or not. I do know I just want to be able to not have a certain level of fear. I'm tired of being afraid for no reason. And it's not that it's no reason, but it should be for no reason. I should not have to carry the fear that I have just because I was born a darker complexion than someone else. Just because my skin absorbs the sun better than someone else's. Because that's really what's going on. All it is my skin absorbs the sun a little bit better. And
Man, go ahead.
Yeah, that should make me have to, live in fear that, someone's going to attack me for that, like every day. That's science. It's just what happened when I was born and where the people I am genetically connected to come from.
Well, we're all genetically connected to Africa, so it's kind of irrelevant in that regard.
Very
But
true. Very true.
Actually, that's debatable. It may have actually been in Asia. Then again, it might have been on the moon. So,
I think it was Mars, panspermia.
Mars, yeah, panspermia. Yeah, there you go.
Different studies showing that it's possible there were multiple origin points. I was reading up on that not too long ago, but
because if there's anything that humans like to do, it's fuck, and we don't give a shit. So,
right.
when it comes down to it, though,
I can't believe you just said that. I love it.
hey,
that's awesome.
I'm so proud of you right now, buddy.
Tracy, when you boil it all down, can you? And this will be my closing comment, and Al and Joel, let's give you a chance to throw some closing stuff in there. As my closing question, my closing comment, let me ask you, knowing what you know, Tracy, about human nature, about the rhetoric and the anger and the angst that you see on both sides of the equation, on BLM and in the neo-Nazi side, do you really think that dream of yours, that dream of Martin Luther King, do you think that those dreams will ever come true? Do you think that's a possibility? Or do you think human nature is going to prevent that in some way, at some point?
I think it's a possibility. If we're looking at human nature and what history has shown us, as much as it's a possibility, I'd also have to say I don't know if it's going to be something that can happen with nonviolence. Paradigm shifts have very rarely been nonviolent. And that's what saddens me.
Take notes, Joel. This is how you call me an asshole. Nice. Well played. I like it. Good stuff.
That was rad.
Okay. Al, Joel,
Al.
Any kind of closing comments? Al?
not really, no.
Al's tired.
I am quite exhausted. Can you hear me, John?
A little bit. We still got that echo and stuff going on. And when you throw the robo into it, that's a little irritating.
Robeco.
Yeah.
Well,
I muted it. Did that help?
I don't know what's going on because I'm on cellular data right now.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah. Honestly, I'm so far removed from this in regards to where I stand on a lot of this issues that I don't really have anything pertinent or critical to say. I'm kind of just examining the battlefield, so to speak, to see where everything kind of filters out and falls down. So I really don't have anything.
Oh, so you were willing to just let me drive this show today and step on my dick for me?
Hey, I let Joel fuck up the recordings, and then I fixed them. I'm going to let you fuck up the actual audio so I can fix that later through, auto tunes and shit like that to entertain me. Hey.
Oh, I must have given you 1,000 good ones to.
Well, yeah, considering the fact that you just got done saying, humans like to fuck, and then you went to boil them down. You don't boil them down. If you're gonna fuck a dead body, you gotta do it.
Oh,
I'm just
God. He went there. God damn it. I thought we were going to make it through a whole podcast without you saying something repulsive. Fuck
you
was I
have
thinking?
hope.
I
That's so
know.
cute. You still
See,
have hope.
I have hope, guys. I do. I'm the most hopeful nihilist there ever was.
On a serious kind of side point, though, I do think a lot of this has to do with the economic inequality that we have and the religious upbringings mixed in. I know that some people are really hesitant to go, oh, religion's part of this. Religion is a major thing. I mean, in the black communities that I've had interactions with the reverends, and they're teaching still the concept of the slave mentality, honor your master, honor God like a master in Southern churches. I mean, that's still the mentality that's taught. And until that community gets out of the excessive religious point of view and starts teaching, we are equal, they're not going to see themselves as being able to obtain equality in that regard. That's just my viewpoint.
I'd just like to say that the whole point behind that particular piece of Christian rhetoric is to point out that all humans are equal and that there really is only one master, and I don't care what your economic or social or political status is, you're still equal. There is someone above you. That's the point of that.
There is nobody above me. I live in a one-story house, dude.
Well, you're talking to someone whose mom's a minister, so...
And I'm ordained, so I really don't care. Just saying.
And Al just ruined any chance of her getting an opportunity to listen to this.
I've ruined lots of effort. My mom listens to me all the time. I'm like, you raised me. Don't ever forget it. She didn't become a minister till I was 19, so always been
She's been repenting since she raised you. Is that
like, you have the before preacher mom. Like, you have a totally different mom than the mom that we got. And I'm like, well,
you're
so much different than you.
You're safe, Tracy. Just when you tell your mom if she's going to listen to the podcast, just go, hey, there's an asshole on it in the last 15 minutes. Just ignore him.
I'm pretty sure my mom thinks all my friends are assholes. I'm an asshole. So she's like, she doesn't judge my friends. She's like, I know
she's an equal opportunity asshole.
Pretty much.
Name her or something.
She made an asshole. So she's like, well, I figure your friends would be like you.
Just out of curiosity, Tracy, what denomination?
We were not raised non-denominational. We went to several different churches. Like the church in Oregon that we ended up settling down was like First Baptist. Mm-hmm. But we were always more non-denominational. Like I also went to like a Lutheran private school, and my mom was really adamant from a young age, for me at the very least, was to research all the religions. She really doesn't like the idea of blind faith. Like, be able to argue your...
All faith is blind, but,
Yeah, and that's, but, it was more of, like, have the knowledge of what you're doing. Like, don't sit there and be like, well, the preacher said... that was her.
If you're gonna make a bunch of shit up, you need to have really good reasons figured out.
Well, we go back and forth on this.
I know. I love it.
Like, we can go back and forth with that. But no, it's I don't know. That was always taught different. I don't have a typical upbringing, and I guess in any way I can possibly think about
I think that's why I really like you.
Probably has something to do with it.
We just all freaks together, man.
Right? Exactly. So, like, no matter how you cut it, none of it was normal or typical.
Yeah.
So, Joel, any closing comments on the topic?
I do. I just want to really send out a heartfelt thank you to you, Tracy, for coming on and spending some time with us. I mean, God, we've been at this for over an hour and a half, if you can believe that.
Oh, wow.
And so and you were all nervous that this was you weren't sure if you were going to have enough to say. Well, you knocked it out of the park today. I'm proud of you. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. This has been really cool. It's nice.
We will do this again.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really do hope so. That'd be really nice.
Got to figure out that echo thing, but other than that.
I know. Maybe I'll use my kids next time. She's got the better headset, I think. I might have given it to her. So, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was really great having you on.
I appreciate the opportunity. I've been wanting to come on and talk with you guys for a while. I just haven't had any time, so.
I wish it could have been under better circumstances, but alas, here we are.
Yeah. But it's nice to talk with people and have it not end up in some kind of crazy, ignorant yelling, screaming.
Oh no, that was 2 podcasts ago.
Yeah, well, we do the crazy ignorant yelling at the beginning, and then end with hugs.
Right?
And
if that's how it's gonna be, it should be that way. Like, can we at least end with a hug? You're a crazy motherfucker, but I'll give you a hug. That's how it should be.
Maybe after a shower,
Right?
Seriously, this stuff really irritates me. If anyone says that one more time, I'm shutting this shit down for good.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, well played, John.
How many more inside jokes are we going to try to get in on this podcast?
Well, there's one that you haven't had to play yet, Joel.
Shut the fuck up, Khalid.
Al's not been a racist this time.
Oh, that's true. I didn't call Al a racist. Wow, that's weird. Al? Hey, Al. Al?
Yeah.
Al, can you hear me? Al?
can hear you.
Al's a racist.
Oh, shit.
Oh, good times.
Fucking gingers, man.
I even got pickle into this one.
Yeah.
All right.
So you think you can break me, but you are